Thank you, Jessica. Has anyone received any communications that they would like to share? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So,
I have a second.
Second.
Julie, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Opposed? Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented passes. And we're already at reports. Mr. Zane.
very good. So the first and only thing I have here is the October 1 report. This report is turned into the state twice a year, October and April, I believe. And, so that front page you see there is the actual report we send into the state. And behind that are the reports that we had from the principals. So I asked the principals to be here, because usually if there's a question about the enrollment, it's easier for them if there's some nuance on there. And so I think we'll start with the oldest person in the room, Mr. Campbell.
You know, isn't there some Title IX violation
He
that just occurred on video? No, that's what you're saying.
You give you priority. That's
Well,
Yeah. Wisdom.
Wisdom, that's right.
all this year going after the Buffalo Bills, I thought.
This is my year. I apologize, you did not get a report from me with the packet, although Christy was going to send something out.
It's in the drive.
It's in the video. It's a fascinating report. I encourage you to read it at your leisure. Not really much on it, other than confirming the numbers that Mr. Zani has already given you. We have exactly the same number of children that we have in first grade school. So that things are going fabulously in Berlin.
Ms. Stipples, did you want to give you this?
Oh, shit, did you?
Yeah, John, are you guys doing any kind of similar, like, pumpkin fest to what BES has coming up?
We do pumpkin decorating, and then we do a Halloween parade.
Another fest,
It's a fest.
Is it connected?
But it is festive. We wanted both syllables. It's festive. Pumpkin fest.
is it a similar kind of event to what BES does, or is it?
I don't know.
The BES pumpkin fest last year was pretty
That
robust.
was the first year. It is.
Oh, sorry.
Last year was the first year.
Ah. Mr. Thompson did not share his pumpkin fest.
Okay.
Maybe we shouldn't get anything on this one.
It's like games and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, recreation does one,
BES
for
does,
one.
yeah.
We do, yeah.
And that's, yeah, this is again, I think BES takes on more of a central role in Boylston because in Berlin we have more of a broader basis of support. Like that.
John, before we go on to Sally's report, you have the same amount you did opening day as October 1. Could you talk to the community about, is that typical? Well, when you do see increases or decreases, what time of year is it usually? Is it over the summer?
It's usually sometime. Yeah, we'll pick up a couple of kids over the course of the school year, we'll visit a couple of kids over the course of the school year. And then summertime is when the big change starts. People will sometimes find it in Berlin is that people will buy in the spring, but because their kids are already somewhere else, they leave their kids in school, and then they'll come in the summertime. Much to Mrs. Rapid's chagrin, because she is not always here, and then it falls to me, and I don't ever get the right forward. She has to yell at me.
All right, so for Tohoto, the numbers are pretty much the same too. I think we're just one off from the beginning of the year because we had a student withdrawal. But like you said, our numbers usually, we see the increases in withdrawals mostly in the summer, so we don't typically see that right now. So that's what I have for enrollment. I also have, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, I have the club. But, yeah, you can talk about that.
Great.
So we have some requests to start some new clubs. And so the first one is the Auto Club. And that was requested by a student in Bengal Valley, and it's to be run by, advised by Krista. It's a brand new club where they plan to talk about cars, what's new in the automotive world, how to do like do-it-yourself maintenance type things. They're hoping to do some fundraisers. They're interested in taking a field trip at the end of the year. Another club is the Chess Club, which was suggested by Sebastian Menio over here at Leonardo Navarro. With the advisor being Mr. Rich Ironman. And this was influenced by some popularity with chess because of the Netflix series. This is interesting because they can not only use boards, but they can also play chess on computers. And they plan to meet, I believe, on Wednesdays after school. And then our third group, another one is the Game Group Club, which has been actually running for quite a while voluntarily by Mr. Greg Picarillo and Jeremiah Gallant. It's been a very successful club. There's about 15 students that actively participate on a regular basis. It's for both middle school and high school. Sometimes they, they play games separately, and sometimes they actually get together. And they play everything from a whole variety of board games to card games. And it's a really nice group, especially for students who want to participate in after-school activities but aren't necessarily interested in sports or the other types of curricular activities that we have to offer. In addition to those 3 clubs, we also have some requests for additional stipends for 2 of our extracurricular activities. One is for the Junior National Honor Society. That's currently being run by Francine Gleason and Chris Cassidy. They're proposing that in addition to having the Junior National Honor Society advisor, that there also be a Junior National Honor Society coordinator, because currently their responsibilities take over 120 hours to complete the entire process of meeting and reviewing and choosing and informing the approximately 200 student applicants that apply each year. And then once they have their, their members, they guide each of those members through 2 community service projects each student. They conduct several fundraisers and meetings, and they also have their induction ceremony at the end of the year. And another additional stipend request is for the high school student council, which is run by Danielle Rinker and Dr. Kim Trainer. And they would like to propose that there be a separate site advisor position so that they would have a high school student council advisor, but also a high school student council advisor / student activities coordinator. They currently put in over 295 hours worth of time to perform many responsibilities associated with the student council, such as coordinating and running the 6th grade orientation we have for students in the summer. Several first day of school events to help welcome all the students to Tohoto on the first day. They run the fall, winter, and spring spirit weeks and pep rallies. They do a lot of work with the homecoming dance. There's all sorts of activities throughout the year, such as the Deck the Halls competition, a high school stall day fundraiser, 12 days of staff appreciation. We have the Haunted Hallway Fall Festival that we have coming up on the 26th, where we have a great pumpkin competition, speaking of pumpkin. There's Thanksgiving food drive, clothing drives, many conferences that they take the students to throughout the year. Valentine's for veterans, Polar Plunge for Special Olympics, Penny Ward fundraisers. They do a Walk for Hunger type event at Mount Wachusett. Plus there's all the elections, and they also do send-offs for graduating seniors and collaborate with us for Refresh Day events and assistance with graduation.
Sally, do you know how much the stipends are?
I didn't bring that with me after the fund, but I can get that information to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you want the clubs or the moment? Okay, I'll do clubs first too. Also same thing to what Lori said. My second thing is, I know I've been to Junior National Honor Society induction, and I can imagine that alone is a ton of work, just to coordinate that alone. So it makes sense to me for there to be an additional stipend. I'm curious about the 200 student applicants there. If this is Junior National Honor Society, right? That's for what grades is that?
So it's 70.
7th to 8th, okay.
I guess it would depend on the year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So like right now, like those grades are lower, so it wouldn't be that much.
Yeah.
And even though I don't have the actual studies with me, I can give you an estimate that, many of our advisors, well, it depends on what it is, but many advisors.
Sound, I have the numbers.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes. Now, Junior National Honor Society is $682, and that's split by 2.
Yeah.
And then the high school student council is $1690, split by 2.
And then for clubs in general, like the other 3 clubs, they're usually around 698, I believe, right?
That's the first level.
So, yeah, what was the additional stipend? I mean, I think it's great, really deserve it.
But they asked us to double it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So the honor society would be another $600 and something, and the student council is,
1690 to 1700.
so another 1,700.
Okay.
Makes sense. They were splitting it. There was always two people doing the work. They were splitting the stipend.
Yeah, they're just doing it for fun.
Makes sense.
You know, as a former national honor society president and student council treasurer, I support both of these. Who have seen the investment in those programs.
Show.
They were both, I mean, when I was a student in high school, I still think back to the experiences I had in those two organizations specifically. And so strongly support
Yeah.
the additional advisors for both those. I'm still in touch with some of the advisors who advised me 20 years ago. 20 years ago. So that's great. I had a question on the enrollment numbers. So it's a little difficult, or maybe not as clear to me to understand class size and the impact of class size at the junior and high school level as it is at the elementary school level. Pretty cut and dry. You've got X number of kids in the second grade class. We know what's big and what's not.
Sure.
As we look at the enrollment at Tohoto, are there any particular areas, subject matter areas where you're crowded, so to speak, and others where you're not?
I would say, not so much in middle school because we basically hand schedule every kid in the summer. We make sure that we look at balancing numbers when we do that. So not necessarily, I mean, math is a little different because there are some different levels of math. You know, so if there might be a class, like if there's one advanced algebra class, that might be a little heavier. That's how many kids got, recommended for that. But for the most part, we even, keep those classes pretty easy.
On the high end, what class or classes tend to have the most number of students, and what classes, how many are there?
For high school or middle school or?
Both.
For both. So for middle school, if they're going to be high, I would say it would be math classes based on the fact that, certain math classes, like an advanced math class or something, because there might just be one, but say 26 kids get recommended for it. So that might be 26 kids in the class versus 20 or 21 or 22. Those other core classes, we try to keep those very even, even out. In the high school, like certain classes, like every student needs to have English all 4 years. So of course, there's going to be higher numbers in those kinds of classes. But,
What's the typical classroom size for like a freshman English class?
I would have to say around 20, 21.
Okay. So we're similar to what we are at the high end in the elementary school level, which is probably a little different type of learning than it is.
Yeah.
in the high school.
And then, some classes, like electives classes, can be smaller. It really
Yeah.
depends on the class. And,
Thank you.
they're kind of all over the place when you get into those.
I have one more question. Okay, so my question is, this might be for Carol and Jeff too. So I know that, so I compiled enrollment numbers from 2016 all the way to today. Color coding is great. Those colors are great. I think it's accurate. Anyways, so what the trend I was noticing was, and it's no big shock to anybody here, but our 8th to 9th enrollment numbers dropped significantly. Year over year though, we're losing between 15 and 20 kids consistently. We're on the upper towards the 20. Last year we lost 20 kids. So I'm just wondering if there's anything we can be doing as a district to help sort of understand why these kids are leaving, other than, my son's in 8th tonight, he lost, most of his friends had left. And I get they go to St. John's Sports and they're in a farm community and we just asked them to.
Right.
But I'm wondering if there was something we could do, maybe exit interviews with these families to better understand, what can we help, what can we do to help hold our students here?
I also think, Julie, just because we talked about this too,
Yeah.
some ideas that we've had also is that, we have this 6th grade parent camp, but why not have more informative session to go from 8 to 9?
Yeah.
So they can understand the path and the rigor that we do offer, because I think sometimes when we move students to private school, students don't be concerned for that, so I think that's something we can work on.
Yeah.
And try to.
I think that's great, that's a great solution. Could we do exit interviews? With families?
Yeah, sure.
I know it's one thing, then we could maybe hear from these families where, where we're missing the mark, if we're missing the mark, if there's something we can provide. That's great, thank you.
Sally, I love the idea of doing the parent camp 8 to 9.
Right.
Because I've said to so many people, middle school is kind of like this no man's land. You have, the fun of elementary school and the seriousness of high school, and then, these kids are just kind of morphing. They're just, and everything's awkward. And so, it's hard to have a good middle school experience because it's just hard to be a middle schooler. But the middle school classes are so different than the high school classes. And the rigor and just the opportunities that are at the high school, I think that's I love that idea of doing a parent camp 8 to 9, so that they can see what's offered here.
Right.
And the kids can too, and they get excited about it.
And I think just because we're in the same school, that's okay, so actually I've already been talking to some staff who are thinking about how to do that stuff. We're starting to develop some ideas for that for sure from the spring.
That's great, I appreciate that, and I know the parents will really appreciate it too.
And I think it's an early thought right now, but, eventually to do it even earlier than that, just so that people can make their choices before they start that whole process of looking at that.
That's a good idea. Smart. Thank you, I appreciate it, thank you. Anyone else,
I
questions?
have a question for John. John, I saw that there's a community housing forum tonight in Berlin. And thought it's something we should probably keep an eye on when it comes to the enrollment in ENS. Mr. Totten did share, there's a Facebook post that he shared with me when he saw it, but, I'm sorry, tonight, Tuesday, 6:30 to 8:30. So, it'd probably be worth us looking for some minutes from that and seeing what's being discussed in terms of your enrollment projections too. If there's things being talked about in terms of Berlin housing, that we know that we're bursting at the seams in terms of our ability to take any more students into those classrooms there.
And Mike actually, knowing that he wasn't gonna be able to make it, actually wrote a long piece about what's going on in the schools and talked about the tour that we had. And then he actually videoed himself reading it. And he sent it to them in 2 formats and said, if you could choose tonight, you pick which medium. Which I thought was really helpful, just so that the school kind of weighs in a little bit. So it's a good idea for us to do the double check again.
I think it was a planning board.
Planning
I
board.
think it was a planning board.
Planning board.
In some acronym, CMRPC.
Oh, Central Mass
Regional Planning
Okay.
Commission.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they're doing a master plan.
You,
Well,
we can
I did
actually
a
hire.
feasibility study with them years ago, we got a grant for that, and that was from Wheeler.
Yep, he's on it.
Yeah.
Karen was on it.
I remember that, so, okay, that's good to know.
All right, Dawn Marie, your first principal's report.
Thank you. So we are just down 1 student since our September report, so we're at 308. We do have 2 students coming the week after next, a kindergartner and a 5th grader. So we'll bump up a little bit there. In terms of the trend of, we obviously see a lot of building happening in town, and the numbers have been increasing over time. And so I personally would like to keep an eye on that in terms of class sizes and distribution of classrooms per grade level. But we're cruising along. It's exciting over there, and we're happy to be all together. We still have some new staff we hired in the past month, and we just have a couple of more slots to fill in. So.
Is it feeling like home?
Yes, yes. Everybody is so welcoming, and the community's been fantastic. And even though I was the lady with this crazy idea of, drop off and pick up and whatever, everybody sort of put up with me for a minute. And things are going really well. And I think students are feeling engaged and happy to be back into the routine. We have some structure that we didn't necessarily have before. And, structure with a little bit of love. So that's it.
2 important ingredients.
Yeah.
So anyone have questions?
Yeah, so I see you have a full festival on October 29th, which is great. Funky festival.
Yes,
I'd like to see that.
yes, we don't mess around.
There are some areas where we are-
We have a full festival.
Which is exciting. My son made Pikachu pumpkin last year.
Very
There were
exciting.
some really impressive pumpkins. They got made, so I'm looking forward to that. The enrollment trend at BES is a concern, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. And we talked about this, Megan and Julie and I, in our budget subcommittee meeting last week. In particular, as it applies to the district improvement plan and the addition of additional staffing in that building. I'm not sure whether Carol was there with us, we were able to reconnect with you on it, but one of the points I made was, looking at these classes per grade number, we're at a point where we need to just commit to having maybe 3 teachers in every grade level. And there will be times when that leads to smaller class sizes and times when that leads to larger class sizes. But I'm interested in exploring and hearing, as we go through the district improvement plan from all of you, thoughts on additional support staff across the building based upon the size of those classes and what makes sense going into the next, based on where the larger classes are. I think kindergarten is one that we've certainly, in this group, talked about several times in needing an aide. I talked to a friend of mine who teaches in the Southwick district, who's a kindergarten teacher, so their school committee actually requires no more than a 10-to-1 ratio in the kindergarten classroom. So there's no 16-person classes with one teacher, those are required to have a second at that point. And so that's intriguing to me as we think about moving forward in policies when it comes to things like class sizes. And Jeff's commented in the past about how when he started in the district, keeping those class sizes below 20 was an important thing you heard from the community, and that continues to be the case. And so I think this is, as I think about the district and the issues that face it over the next coming years, this to me is top of the heap.
And what you get when you have classroom sizes stay small, but also you have consistency across grade levels in terms of 3 classrooms, is you get the consistency of educators coming together, learning a curriculum, and being able to push forward and get through the challenges that it brings, and then work together as a team. So when you move people around back and forth, what you lose is that stamina in that grade level and their ability to deliver more intense, more rigorous instruction, because they have to step back, relearn a curriculum, and then push forward again. So even those teachers who I know have gone from 2nd to 3rd grade and sort of swapped back and forth, now they're learning a whole new literacy curriculum, and now that's going to be impactful if we move them again. And so I do think that it's really important for classroom teachers to have stability as well as kids.
The other thing you have to realize is that 22 kids in kindergarten class, 22 kids in 11th grade class, those are 2 very different.
Yeah.
And so, so the need for teachers is definitely there.
I agree with you, John Marie. I think the moving, I taught 3 different grades, and it was like after a while, you're learning along with them. 'Cause you're trying to cram, new things that you haven't learned in a long time. So I think that the continuity would be good.
My mom taught 2nd grade for 30 years, and you couldn't have pulled her out of 2nd grade classroom to go to 1st or 3rd. Second grade class. Look forward to next year.
Okay, any other questions? No questions? Yeah. I will let the 3 of you go home to your families. Grab something to eat, enjoy the night. Thank you for coming and thank you for presenting. Thank you.
Assuming that's what we're
Good, I'm good, we're good.
Thank you.
Onward.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to item B, item 6, we'll go to B. Ms. Costello. Thank you.
So in the past couple of years, we've made sure that the school committee has had a chance to see the grants that we're receiving and to approve those grants. That is what we are supposed to be doing. So we recently, this is the ESSER grants, the Every Student Succeeds Act there. And these are the title grants, there are 1, 2A, and 4. We get these annually. I wanted to make sure that we had those approved tonight. And also just to let you know, to see the amount that we're getting, these are not big figures compared to some districts who get millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. We try to stretch this money as much as possible. I put down under purpose and use, basically what we're using that funding for. But it's not a lot of money. We try to think about what we need for the year ahead and adjust accordingly. So those are the figures for those 3 grants. Also, I just wanted to give you an update on the parent-teacher conferences. So by the end of this week, we should have all the elementary students scheduled for the parents scheduled for the elementary conferences. On October 17th, we'll open up a link to Tohoto parents for a new system platform we're trying this year called Sign Me Up. And it is a link that the Secretary of Tohoto will send out to parents, and they will be able to select the teachers that they want to see. We have teamed up the middle school teachers, but only in pairs. So you will have like an ELA, social studies, and a math science. That will give us more slots opening up, but it will also have common themed teachers together, and we'll also keep that team unity that the middle school teachers wanted to make sure they preserved. So we're trying it. I would hope that parents bear with us this first year that we're doing this. We're hoping that it's effective. We will certainly send out a survey after the conferences to see how this functioned, if people were able to see, parents were able to get to the teachers they needed to get to. Keep in mind, there's always the option to schedule a conference with the teachers individually, apart from this particular night. I did want to point out too, it is the same evening, or the same day and same evening on November 10th. It's an early release day, and we thought to do this because it would keep preventing us from doing more half days off student learning. So we're going to see if it works, and if not, we may have to revisit that for next year, but I'm optimistic that this will work well. The times, again, I had an error on the first one. They're actually 12:30 to 6:30 for the elementary schools, but there's a half-hour break that is at the teacher's discretion that they can pay for a meal break. But Tohoto has a 5:30 to 8 o'clock, and the 12 to 3 for their times. So those are conferences. That information will come again to Tohoto parents October 17th to the 24th. And then finally, MCAS, we will be doing the presentations for the MCAS results. There were some gifts, and we're concerned about, we want to talk with the school committee about what we're seeing. I just spoke to John before the meeting. He's met with Peter Doherty. They were looking at data. I met with Peter for the high school level. And I think we all want to just share our perspective on what we're seeing and really to be honest about what we're seeing and what we need to do next. I also think that what I've heard from these folks is they would love to be able to educate the school committee on changes in MCAS and to really understand it better, because I think in past years we've had a PowerPoint presentation and principals go through it and then it's over and it's short, but there's really not an in-depth understanding, I think, of MCAS and what they mean and how to read them and what it means for our district. So we would like to be able to offer that up before we do the presentation. So we'll have to figure out how to do that, perhaps with the school committee. So that was the MCAS. Also, I added this last piece. I was reading this on Friday, a note from Amanda Jodry, who teaches the banking class at Tohoto. And I thought this note just spoke to the fact that it had a lot of meaning to staff members, and particularly this individual from Clinton Savings Bank, who's a community partner as well. The parents came out that night and were very interested in this type of program that we're offering at Tohoto. And that I was talking to a parent through email, thinking about extending this kind of financial literacy program into the elementary school and middle school in some fashion. We have had it in the past. It was very extensive in the elementary school, and it was through a parent who happened to be here at the time who worked for a bank and brought in interns. We tried it. It was a lot of time out of the classroom, learning time. I think we can tailor that, and I wanted to see if Clinton Savings Bank would be willing to partner with us. Even if at the elementary level, they gave a few sessions on banking and built from there, and other things in the middle school and then to the high school. So I am interested in doing that, and I just was really excited that Amanda happened to reach out, so I'm interested to see what we want to. And thank the parents for coming to open house.
I have one question, Carol. Open house was great, by the way. It was so great. It was so busy. I've never seen so many parents here at the open house.
Good. The teachers kept the numbers, and from what I looked at, and I haven't had a chance to talk directly to them, certainly much more in the middle school than the high school, the regular teachers, they can for these. But I thought the turnout was really strong for middle school. And the parents were buzzing and visiting and chatting with teachers, and a lot of movement and a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
I felt that too.
Yeah. So the question I have is, when the school plans big events like this, when you want the whole parent community to come, is there ever a conversation with the athletic department about, gee, how does this night look for the athletes in the school? Which will affect the parents? Meaning like, the field hockey team is away in Air, and soccer team's away in Lunenburg, and
You plan a different night where they're available, like those.
where there's, home games, or there's maybe, maybe just, there's a middle school game because they tend to play earlier. I just didn't
So
know
that
if
they
there
can
was
come,
ever.
that's what you're saying. So
Yeah,
everybody will
so,
have the
exactly,
opportunity.
yes.
Yeah, I forgot why we had to come. Oh, I know what it was. This year, the October 6th date was the one that they originally had scheduled for the early release day, when they did what they had done before, the open house conference night or day and night. So I think that's why we just stuck with that particular day for this year, but it doesn't have to be on that date for the future. So I'll mention that to Sally.
Yeah, maybe just to have a conversation with,
Sally and the association.
with the athletics, to just say, geez, there's 6 away games, that's gonna be pretty impactful for the community.
That they don't go back in time.
Because they don't get back in time, especially with bus delays.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Hopefully it won't be.
Yeah, I think that was just
I don't think
circumstances.
that's-
that we-
They don't have the schedule done before they go on the calendar. You can do a
We can
revote. You can do a revote.
Yeah,
Because you can have a
that's
placeholder there, say it's the 6th, knowing that you're gonna have to come back to them for another vote once the athletics, the competition schedules come out.
It's an evening event too, so, you can move that without affecting.
Yeah, I mean, you could just take another
Right.
revote on it. So you can, like, I said, placeholder in.
No, that's a good point. Let's try to remember that in spring when we're looking. at the
Right, I
calendar.
know, that's remembering it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Do it on a Friday, do they have less games? I don't know what the schedule is.
There's still games, there's
Oh,
games
there are.
every Monday to Friday.
Okay.
Depending on what we're playing at.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though.
Carol, I have a couple of questions on the grants. So you pointed out that the numbers here are missing a couple zeros compared to other districts. Is that a function of the number of students in our district, or is it a function of affluence? What is it that determines how much we get for these grants?
Yeah, it depends, and there's a formula that's used by the state and federal government, and part of it's economically disadvantaged students in the district, so it's built off of that primarily. And actually, Title IV grant feeds off of the Title I grant as well, so it's for a different purpose, but those are the numbers that are used.
So is the expectation of the government that, is the expectation that in a less economically disadvantaged district, that we will have additional funding available to pay for it locally for these things? Not that the things aren't needed, right?
I think it's looked at kind of the opposite way. I think it's more that they give more funding to greater needs.
Sure.
Like it's kind of switching things, that. I don't think they do that just expecting districts to get more money, we can afford to, but they really want to be able to support those communities where they truly need funding.
And one of the items on here, under the Title IV grant for A, is this parent communication survey tool. Can you speak to what that is?
Yeah, that's what we're using for survey monkey right now, the one that we brought in from Superintendent's Advisory Council, because the one that we were using had so many, was clunky and had so many glitches. We were finding complaints from parents, and everybody actually was trying to use a Google form. And we thought that this was able to be a little more cleaner. But we are finding that we also have a capability through Power School, and we're exploring that option in the future.
So I know that particular item because I'm interested in seeing us put in place a more robust school climate type of survey on an annual basis as we move forward. And I'm thinking that probably going to cost more than what we're using now. But my understanding is there are a number of providers out there that conduct these school climate surveys in public school districts and provide that information up to us from teachers, staff, parents as to what their opinion is of the district and what's going on in it right now. I think that's probably, from my standpoint, been one of the most difficult things in the role of the school committee, is not having that kind of 360 feedback from parents and teachers as to what's happening district-wide. And so I think as we move forward, finding funding and a tool that's a little more robust, and also I don't think we need to make up our own questions. I think there are people who have created questions that they know to be scientific and tested, and we can see how we do year to year on those.
And that's what we did for the parent, the equity survey last year, we used panorama
Okay.
questions, and that was what the superintendent's advisory council worked on.
Okay.
When it sent that survey out, but we did the off-season, we did want to run a student survey on that this year. And actually Jeff and I were just talking about that this morning, about getting the group together again and putting that survey together for students who are thinking about what grade levels to approach.
I'd like to see teacher feedback too, that the teacher
Teacher
group
feedback,
too, as well. I'd like to see more.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm just gonna make a note, I don't know if people knew this, I didn't know this until my daughter took the class, but when you take that class, the Clinton Savings Bank, you become a certified teller.
Right.
So she can work at a bank.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the financial, like, they don't understand how to write checks or anything like that. Maybe they won't ever have to, who knows, but they learn so many valuable real life skills in that class.
We had a
Except
student,
your locksmith.
we had a student at Tohoto, I walked into the branch in West Boylston, and I looked at him, and you know, you see somebody you know, but they're not in the same place.
Yes. Try to place you, yeah.
And he was pleasant as can be, and I said, "You a Tohoto student?" He said, "Yeah, I am." You know, and he was doing his internship, and he was working part-time, getting paid there. And Amanda was telling me that evening of the open house, that he went on to college, and he would work at the bank, he worked at the bank part-time while he's going through college. So he's able to, yeah, help support him as he's doing that. So what a great opportunity for the students.
And they make it clear, like Michelle Hazelhurst, who's the branch manager of the one in Boylston, said, we want to hire the students, we want them working for us.
Absolutely.
Especially in the summers when everybody wants to go on vacation.
So,
What grade is the class?
High school, right?
high school.
Anyone 9 to 12?
I
Or
don't
maybe
think it's
hold that
ninth
straight.
grade, I think it's 11th and 12th.
Ah.
Yeah. Make sure you have it on your radar.
Probably have to be like 16 to be, right? There's probably age limit.
Oh, yeah, to work.
Yep, to work, yeah.
Yeah.
They work right here, probably, the branch.
Yeah.
That's great.
Any other questions? Thank you, Carol. We already did the Tohoto Middle School. Director of Finance, Ms. Kinsky.
All right, so I will start with the budget timeline.
Yep.
So the timeline has been reviewed at our budget subcommittee meetings twice, actually. So I'll briefly go over the timeline. Currently, our administrators and principals are working on their preliminary budgets. Any above-level service request is going to be reviewed by administration, and then it will be reviewed by the subcommittee on October 20th. Hopefully, we'll have it ready by then. The budget request will continue to be reviewed internally with administration, and the entire budget will then be reviewed by the subcommittee on December 8th and presented to the school committee on December 13th. In January, with a date that is yet to be determined, the budgets will be presented to the respective towns of Board of Selectmen and Finance committees. Updates to the budget will continue up until the public hearing on February 28th. And the final step will be a vote at the town meetings for a date that is yet to be determined. Most likely it will be in May. I kind of went with the same timeline that you guys have always used to kind of keep it familiar. Any questions?
Any questions for the timeline?
Thank you.
Then you will find the up-to-date budget report for fiscal year '23. Again, I kept the format the same as my predecessors, since you're familiar with it. I thought it would be the best way to start off here. So the first page shows the year-to-date budget for the entire district. So you have district-wide, and then it goes down for each school. So you have Berlin Memorial, Boylston Elementary, and Tohoto. The second page, I added a brief description of each of the categories, so you know what is included in each. And as you can see at the beginning of the school year, we have a lot of budget transfers that take place. Personnel, miscellaneous expenses, and grants are all encumbered, so there's a lot of funds that are transferred and moved around to make everything work. But the budget the adjusted budget is the same that you approved. There still are a lot of expenses that aren't encumbered. Some of them are, we worked through them through the year. Some common ones are special education expenses that are hard to always encumber, utilities, maintenance, and operations. I just want everyone to keep in mind when you look at the budget balance, that isn't an accurate reflection of where we're going to be at the end of the year, because there's a lot of expenses that will take place throughout the year. And that's what I have.
So to that point, Nancy, if I'm trying to understand where we are and how we're trending towards the bottom line budget, what should I look at to say, okay, we're looking good over now?
So if you look at the district-wide,
Yeah,
there's nothing that's over budget.
okay.
We're in one. Right now, we are currently in line with all our budget plans.
Okay. So if I look at property administration, let's say, the 1.048 original budget, you've got transfers, adjusted budget because of transfers, transactions that have occurred, plus the encumbrances, leaves us with the 69,000 at the end.
Yeah.
But there's expenses that are going to hit that 69,000 as we go through the year. The budget balance there, 69.
Yeah.
At the end.
So each I would to accurately look that, I'd have to dig into it. It's harder for me at this point in time because I didn't create the budget. So I have to go back and really dig into it and look at it. Most of, normally I would probably know off the top of my head, but this is going to take me a little bit to catch up. So just looking at this, I think that there was probably a lot of movement with principal movement, me coming in. So that, I believe that's a save.
Okay.
But I can definitely do that and get back to you. And like in another example, as you can see, like with instructional support, I did a budget transfer of almost 112,000. So
Out of there into other lines.
yeah, a lot of that was movement within the grants because we added some paraprofessionals into the 240 grant, and then we were able to have savings throughout the budget because of that.
So Jeff, I know you commented on some of the savings we realized because of some senior teachers leaving and being replaced by the junior staff who are going to be lower on the salary ladder. Is that part of that too? Would we see that reflected in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That goes under, that's under the instructional support. Yeah,
So that's what I'm
that's under
saying,
there.
that part of it too.
Yeah. If you ever wanted a deeper dive or this presented a different way, just let me know. Because I have it broken out a lot of different ways. I have it broken out just by salaries, so you can kind of see where everything.
But for that deeper dive, this is great, would be better, good deeper dive than me.
I love spreadsheets.
T-shirt like that. Everybody knows to clear
Can
the
you
way.
imagine if I
when you
wear
come
that
down
to
the street.
school? I love spreadsheets.
Yep.
So my question is, if we're under budget by 1.6 million at year end, which is what I'm gathering from this, right? There's gonna be 1.6, maybe.
No. So not everything's encumbered. Utilities aren't encumbered.
Okay,
There could be, special education's always an unknown.
gotcha.
Not everything is encumbered in the budget. So
There
that's
looks
what I was
like
trying to say, that
There
1.6.
could be a savings. I get it. You're not, it looks like we're in a good position right now.
We're in a good position.
Yep. So if there's extra money left over, let's say I don't know, let's say April rolls around and we're like, oh yeah, we've got this extra $500,000 or $400,000. Can we just take that money to do a project?
You can't take the money. man.
I don't wanna take it. I'm talking about let's say we want to put air conditioning in at BES. We do that? 400,000, didn't Jeff get it? You don't think that we'll have that?
I don't think we're gonna have that amount of money.
I
at the end of the year.
Balances of like
Yeah.
15,000, 20,000. We spend almost right to the penny.
Yeah.
That's when we have something at the end. In the past 5 years, I know it's a nice thing to think about, but.
Well, I'm just looking at the spreadsheet, so I'd love to see what the other encumbrances are. I get the
Yeah, I mean-
utilities.
Maybe it would help you if I gave you a list of what's not encumbered, and then you
Yeah.
can see why you're not gonna have one
I'm
point
gonna
six
be like,
million
oh
left.
wait, this is all spent.
Right.
So this paints a
I mean,
picture of
just
like,
after speaking with the special ed director today, there's so many things that are like, could be, I mean, special ed's a really unknown area. and
Right.
anything could pop up, and a lot of things that
Yeah.
pop up are gonna see that.
And the reason a lot of times that we're in good shape is, like, at the end of the year, when we do have stuff, we prepay a lot of things.
Right.
Like, we'll prepay tuitions and things, because that helps us. Otherwise, we have to pay for all those during the year.
Yeah.
Which we almost could never do. We'd be digging into school choice all the time, or we just wouldn't be able to find it. So when we have savings, we prepay things that are allowable to prepay.
so if there is a savings, you prepay.
That's typically what we do.
And the other thing I'm thinking is, as someone who had to defend our budget to 2 different towns, I had calls from different people, FinCom and Selectmen. I think if we had an extra 500,000, we would not fare well, since we went and bought for that kind of money anyway.
Oh,
You know what I
right,
mean?
exactly.
So we pay for things that we would have had to pay for anyway. These are, like I said, tuitions.
Yep.
So we can get prepaid when we do, because we'd have to do it anyway, and it'd have to come from the town. So, as Laurie just said, to have $500,000 over, and then, we're gonna put air conditioning in, would send it to go.
Right.
It's not the best optics to say, okay, well, you did this so you could pay for something.
Yeah, it would be like, we took this money.
I think they would want us to pay for next year's budget, you know what I mean, like, take that.
Right.
Of
Yeah,
course,
that's
yeah,
what we do.
I get it. So it doesn't sound like we're gonna have that much left over anyway.
Well, we'll see, but usually
Yeah.
it's usually not.
That's why I kind of was thinking about leaving that balance column off, because it's kind of just deceiving, because it's not an accurate reflection of where we're gonna be.
All
I
right.
had the same reaction earlier, saying, asking to go to.
And that's what I'm like, I should have taken it off.
Thinking
I
about
would've
the
just-
time
I would've just done the math. I would've just done the math.
Yeah.
Thank you, maybe we can, I think a couple something we can put on there to get a better understanding of what's
Yeah.
on the 20th.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you have a detailed spreadsheet,
Oh, there's so much detail behind that, you love it.
Yeah, I need I have to look at it, but yeah.
Yeah, if you like I have like all the payroll on a big spreadsheet, and if you look at it, you'll see that where it lands. And
Yeah, no, I get it.
like when I started, I will say with the prepays, there were, I think, 2 out of districts prepaid, and I want to say transportation, and that was a huge help in starting off this year with
Oh.
making everything balanced. Like that makes a very big difference to be able to do that.
To do the
That's
prepays.
huge, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So then when the school committee approves the budget at the 19.1 number,
Mhm.
how much flexibility does the administration have to do these transfers as you've done throughout the years?
So the plan,
We can transfer within a fund code.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, all of these are transferred within fund codes.
Other than that, we have to come to you.
Okay.
Not that we won't let you know anyway, but
Yeah.
Right.
we have a little more
Yeah.
flexibility.
So I normally always brought budget transfers on a quarterly basis for approval. I would just kind of just get a list and be able to see them all.
Do you have anything else?
I have one more. So the last item is the deposit for the OPEB trust. So requesting approval for deposit into the OPEB trust for $51,747. This is the amount that was approved by the school committee in the fiscal year '23 budget. And it accounts for funds from Berlin Memorial, Boylston Elementary, and Utah Honto.
We were all in capital.
Yeah, I know, it's like really easy for us.
It's okay. Thank you, Nancy, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Mara have the night off. So we'll move down to the school committee's chair report, and mine's more of just a communication, really. I did reach out to Lindsay Heffernan, who is the chair of the Shrewsbury School Committee. And I did it because Adam had actually found a document for their superintendent's evaluation. And it was really streamlined, it looked a lot easier. So I reached out to her and asked her if we could have a chat, you know, she could just explain to me how, you know, how they do this. And she said, let's have a call. We were on the call for probably a good half an hour. She was so great to work with. And she gave me a lot of information that I will pass along to the superintendent evaluation, that group, that I think is very helpful. And some of the things we need to look at too are how the superintendent does the report too. They use a different structure, so it might be easier using the different structure. So those are things that committee can talk about. Another thing that we were able to talk about, it just happened to have, she happened to write up that day, was, you know, Boylston is not part of the Assabet Collaborative. Berlin is, and you know, there's a lot of upset parents, and I don't think they necessarily understand that it wasn't our decision, it was Assabet's decision. And in Shrewsbury, the parents were very upset because she said they had about 100 kids that wanted to go. So she said with that many kids, you know, it's worth our looking into how we can join the collaborative, how much it would cost, what we would have to do, if it's even a possibility. So Shrewsbury is investigating that right now, and I did ask her if she could keep me in the loop. I said, you don't have to remember to reach out to me, I'll reach out to you every now and then just to check in to see how it's going. So we're lucky to have a district so close. She thought that in the end, it may be quite expensive, and that the town, you know, ultimately it would be the town's decision to move forward with it, but she was doing the legwork for it, which is great. It's nice to have someone so close by that can be a resource. So.
At some point, this is a point of judgment in Carolyn, at what point do we need another vocational high school in this area to be able to cover the demand that seems to be there? Or versus offering some of the program of our own?
And you had done the internships. We've started the idea of having, you know, parents come in, and they did last year, right?
Well, we had talked about this in an strategic improvement plan. And so this goes back to the question that you asked, how do we separate ourselves from other schools? Why are we losing kids? And I think it was the first school committee, I believe, that asked me that question. You know, this is one of the things we wanted to do, to try to figure this out. How do we, you know, why do we lose kids, and why do, you know, how do we keep them? And so, you know, the reality is, you know, we'll lose kids to the Math and Science Academy, lose kids to St. John, lose kids to the vocational school. So when all that's said and done, it leaves us to compete with the other academic schools. And we're small, so we don't necessarily, we're not able to offer sometimes all the academic program that they offer. So when we talked about the 5-year improvement plan, there's now a 3-year improvement plan, and I think Carol's done a great job with Sally and Kara and the guidance department of getting us underway, is to introduce the internship and shadowing program. Almost like if you think about in terms of like a Northeastern University where they have, like you can go out and work. So you get some work experience. So we started it last year. We're going to offer like career panels, I think you call them, for sophomores. And then I think they included the juniors, but also in the junior year, offering shadowing experiences where juniors can go out into the community. We have a lot of biotech, we have a lot of universities, hospitals. Kids could do shadowing experience. And then in the senior year, they have an internship available to them. So that'd be something that there's a lot of, most schools don't, most academic schools don't have that. So that is in there. And one of the things that we had in the budget last year, which we funded, was we had someone to work on a database for us. So even though we didn't have the program going, we thought we needed the database. So she spent the majority of her time we had an old database from the Central Mass STEM pipeline, but, you know, so she worked off that, but also did a lot of cold calling. We spent a whole year really just building up the database. So now when we restructured the guidance department, it allowed one of those faculty members to now oversee that program. So I know, Kelly, you do a lot of work with them. Is there anything you want to add on this? So I know the program's going, it's in the 3-year district improvement plan. but-
Well, last year we had the panel discussions and we got that up and running. So this year you would expect to see the panel discussions are coming and also some shadowing opportunities as well. So we've already met with Sally Rodman, she's handling that. She's college and career readiness and she's handling this internship program. She'll be setting that up. So she's working on that and we're planning in March to get those up and running. Or we have to get them up and running to actually happen.
And again, the pandemic, this was all, this would have been, we had this scheduled to actually be up and running. But it's still there, we did take the time to build those databases, so we do have contacts that they can use.
And we do want to run the internship programs as a course as well, so students would have some background and education around how to conduct themselves in a public setting, what employers expect them to have when they go into the workforce and that area. So, so Eileen's working on that right now.
Do you need more parents? Do you need to put a call out to parents at all to say, would you be interested, do you have a career that you'd be willing to have a child, a student shadow you?
We'll absolutely be doing that.
That's great.
And then the other thing is things like, we were talking about this year, so I need to have myself a restructuring athletic program. So that not only gives us more opportunities for those students, but it gives us more opportunities for just expansion of after-school programs. So those are the little things that other schools, because they're big, they don't, it's not that they don't offer, but they're big schools, so they don't have, it gets cumbersome. We're small enough so that we can offer those after-school activities, homework periods, music classes, art, all of those kind of things. So those are the little things, because basically we're an academic school, and so is everybody else. So we're competing with people who have more kids, we have enormous budgets, we have a lot of resources. So you got to think, how are we gonna? But we're small, we can be flexible and nimble, so we got to take advantage of that. And so these things like the internship shadowing, the after-school periods, putting in the late buses, and I think Carol, we talked about adding another one. So I mean that's something you're gonna have to work on, but.
Yeah, I don't think kids are leaving because they're not challenged academically. I think it's other.
No, that's not true. There probably is some other, but I can't tell you how many calls I took from parents, especially when I first got here, at the high school at least. So you're thinking at the other end, right? You're thinking like in middle school.
No, I'm specifically thinking 8 to 9, more than 8 to 9.
Well, I mean, again, I took a lot of calls from parents who wanted more advanced academic classes. It's why that 6th period appeared in the first place, is to try to expand programming, and that's not the way to do it. You have to do it in a very structured way, so that you don't miss, you expand program at the expense of management and operations of the school, right? So we've talked about that. So there's probably some other reasons too, but part of it is the operations, the management. Part of it's that too.
Yes.
So on a different topic.
Yeah.
I know I saw you send an email out to the NASC this,
Yeah.
asking for information on how other school committees and districts share meeting materials. And there were people who questioned us on that, and I think they're right. We need to be able to provide transparent access to the materials that are related to the meeting we're having, so that people are informed of what they are during and after the meeting. Can you share, Lori, what you heard back from other districts and chairs as to how they, just generally speaking, how they kind of proceeded to make sure this information is publicly available?
Yes, I can. I know several of them use, one district takes, they basically have a full PDF. It starts, the first page is the agenda, and then all underneath it are linked, or not linked, because it's a big PDF form of every item that's going to be discussed when they are, when they're in their meetings. I did ask them, and curiously enough, they release theirs the next day. It's just always been the next day. And that was something that was interesting as well, was trying to figure out when you release it, when legally can you release it. Let me see, just trying to find, there was there were several different kinds of methods that they used. They used programs. Let's see, there was a woman from Triton Regional, the chair. She wrote in and said that they use Board Docs, which is a program, and any document can be prepared in advance, exceptions are few, and posted with the agenda at the time of posting. So once they post their agenda, all of their documents get posted too. So there's a few different things that they did. Adam, did you say you used something?
I use something called Wordables, and my clients that have boards, probably similar to Board Docs
Yeah.
type of product. But I think from my perspective, a year into this now, I think we need to do a better job of getting meeting materials available, not only to us, but also to us. Long in advance of a meeting, I think there's 72 hours is what I would expect to be able to have everything in hand for an upcoming meeting. So I want to ask us to try to be better at that and get these things in there. And if we can't get information in there in time, we can push the item to the next meeting. But speaking personally, there's several items for this meeting that didn't even drive to today, and that's difficult to catch up on and be informed of.
I know Mohawk Trail, I'll just share this last one, they post their packet on the Friday prior to their Tuesday meeting. So you can look at it, over the weekend, digest it, which is great for school committee members, but it's also great for the public in case there's something that they want to say, they don't have to, kind of generate it on the fly.
Yeah.
So we have lots of different options. There's another one I still have to check out as well. But we did discuss it in our policy meeting.
Okay.
A little bit, and I don't know if that would be something policy would continue to deal with, or if we send it to student.
I think it belongs in
Probably
the
policy,
policies.
yeah, I think it's belongs in policy. So we did have a discussion about it.
Well, our next meeting isn't until November 15th, so we've got some time here to
Yes,
get that figured out. I think going into that, I'd like to see us have this information that with all of us in public. 72 hours would be my recommendation in advance. All these meetings.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's hard, 'cause I worked today, so, and I'm sure all of us. It's extension season, October 15th. So, yeah, it's just hard. There was some stuff in there, but the stuff that was not, you don't have a chance to look at it, and then the meeting becomes less productive, so.
well, I find as the week begins, the time disappears.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have more at the end of the week.
Yeah, so, yeah, 72 hours I think is good, and if we can get it to the public too, right, so the public can look at it and decide if they want to come and sit and listen, or, if a topic's being discussed and the material being discussed is something they're not interested in, they don't.
One Adam today on our school committee Facebook page, he posted.
I saw that, that was great.
Thank you. So it's a great place to go, check it out. Subcommittee updates, budget, facilities, and safety subcommittee.
Yeah, so we had a meeting last Thursday, about 2 hours. Megan, Julie, and myself, along with Nancy Carroll and Paul stepped in for one portion of what we talked about, cell phone service in and around this building and the challenge that entails. But I think overall, a really effective meeting. We were able to look back at some of the benchmarking we had requested for non-union personnel, and understand where we are compared to other districts, specifically for principals and paraprofessionals, and had some initial conversation there about potentially enhancing some of those budgets to make sure we can attract and retain great support staff and principals in all of our buildings. We also looked at the district improvement plan, specifically the personnel section, which was closest to completion, and looked at some of the timing on hiring, in particular, looking at those aides in the kindergarten classrooms, as well as 2 new teachers at BES that would then get us to 3 teachers for every grade level at BES. And so the message we sent back to the administration was that move forward with doing these things now and putting them in the budget for next year, rather than trying to space them out over a 2 to 3 year period. I think we all feel that there's a need to make a very major investment in our schools this upcoming year through this budget process, and let's put it on the table before we pull it back. I think that was the general consensus, maybe Julie, feel free to, question me if not, I think our general consensus was let's put all this in there and go forward. And then we also spoke about the facilities assessment we have out to bid for VES. Any luck yet? Still waiting for some people there. If you know any good facilities assessment contractors, tell them there's an RFP out there. 19th, right? October 19th is the last day. Yeah. So that's an important thing, I think, for us too, because we know the roof and the HVAC system in particular are likely to need, some enhancement there, if not replacement. And talk with the OPEB stuff that we just, approved later on today, and we have a good understanding of what that looks like over the next 10 years and trying to make sure we have the right level of savings in that account so that we can cover our retiree healthcare and expenses going forward.
The cell phone, I think that's an important thing. Yeah, I know parents have been asked, I've had a few parents ask about that. So do you want to give out the?
Yeah, so what Paul shared is that back in 2007, we had a letter from, where they talked about potentially locating a tower here on the property. There was some back and forth at that time between the two towns and the school district, and there would be revenue from that, and revenue would be. I think the outcome of our conversation there was that we need to talk to the town of Boylston first and see if there's an opportunity for them to pursue it, versus for us, there's some challenges with it. We wanted to put like a repeater device here in this building to improve it. We run into some legal liability issues with that, but I think the first step is for us to talk to the other elected officials in Boylston about a potential way to improve the lack of cell phone activity to this building and around it, which is a safety issue.
I like that you guys are asking to see like all needs on the table, because I think sometimes when you look at the budget, you like, oh, that's not that bad, or to know, like, for the community, the parents to know what the needs are, I think is really important, because then when, when we have to go and ask for money, they say, oh, well, I get it now, I heard all these things, so I like the transparency, and I like that it's early on.
I think it also has the district improvement plan.
Yes.
And making sure we communicate that effectively out to the community so they understand what it is we're trying to do and why, and then, hey, this is what it's going to cost, and this is a decision for the town.
Absolutely, it's great.
Next meeting is the 20th of October.
All right, Student Success and Technology Subcommittee, is that Mike, does Mike chair that?
It is Mike.
Does anybody want to speak to it? Anything happen?
Subcommittee, there's been no meeting since our last
Oh, okay.
school committee, but I know Mr. Topman's working on getting this meeting scheduled for that subcommittee.
Policy and School Committee Effectiveness, I'm the only one present. It was myself, Mr. Topman, Mr. Holmes, and Mr. Zangi, and the WBAC. What we did is we went over the updates from the MASC policies. They've sent out additional language, and what I've done is, they're going to be first reads for the next time. What I've done is I've made a document for 3 of them, I need to for the rest of them, but you see what the old policy was, and then you see in red what they want to add in. And it's just protected classes. It's no major change other than the fact that they want to make sure these classes are protected. So you'll see those at the next meeting. And then we had talked a little bit about goals, and we were going to work, Mike was going to actually write them up for our next one. And I believe that's it. The Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee, that's a different name now. Is it?
Yeah, personnel negotiations.
Yeah, personnel.
It's like the contract, so we haven't met because there just hasn't been any.
Yes, and even though I'm not a part of that group, I'm trying to figure out what I can to give you guys the information to go through. And I'd be happy to explain the old process if you need me there. I know a few forms, we'd have to kind of figure out how we would do that, but, or to even just, send it along with a letter. Because trying to make heads or tails of something can be really.
You know what we could do, Laurie, maybe you and I could just talk, since I'm the chair on that committee.
That'd be great.
Yep, and
Yeah,
then I can
share.
share that to the committee, so we can at least kind of, because I know Bob had mentioned maybe kind of to make things a little easier for us.
Yes.
We kind of do pieces of, the evaluation, or as much as we can
Yes.
on a quarterly basis. So yeah, maybe we should try to
Yeah. We'll
set something up,
Yep.
yep, perfect.
Okay, starting it. All right, I think that's it. New business, could I have a motion to approve the execution of a contract between BVRSD School Committee and Merrick O'Connell, attorneys at law, for the negotiation and preparation of a contract between the BVRSD School Committee and Carol Costello for the position of Superintendent of Schools beginning July 1st, 2023, in the amount of $235 an hour.
So moved.
Adam, second.
Sorry.
Julie, discussion?
I'll just say that the budget subcommittee has looked at, in the process of, on this topic, looked at several attorneys that we're evaluating for the future, and they're going to plan to address the amount of on the 20th and come back with a recommendation to the school committee on permanent counsel. But in the meantime, I'm supporting doing this for this upcoming item.
Trial run. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Opposed, abstained? It passes. The motion to hire Merrick O'Connell to do negotiations with the BVRSD School Committee and Carol Costello. Could I have a motion to approve an OPEB deposit in the amount of $51,737?
So moved.
Sorry. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. Next one was just a few here, I think. Could I have a motion to approve the acceptance of grant as presented by Ms. Costello?
So moved.
Megan? Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. The motion to approve the acceptance of grants as presented by Ms. Costello passes. Now, items D through G, we have, they're all first reads, but for the public, I'll let them know. It's approve the creation of the chess club at Tohoto Regional, approve the creation of a game group at Tohoto, approve the creation of an auto club at Tohoto, and add an additional stipend to the National Junior Honor Society, and there's something else. Student council, thank you. So those are all first reads, and we will vote on those next time. And at this time, we do not need to enter executive session. So our upcoming meeting dates are October 25th as needed, November 15th, and December 13th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, right? No?
Aye.
Aye. I'm an aye as well. This concludes our meeting. Good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.